Okay, it is Tuesday, January 13th, 2026, which means that I forgot to call my brother on his 86th birthday yesterday. January 12th was not only my one of my brothers, my second oldest brother's birthday, January 6th, 1940, but it was also my parents' wedding anniversary in 1935. So that would mean this would be their, what, 91st anniversary. Anyway, they're long gone, darlings. Uh, and here's Mickey, speaking of not being able to see. Bless her. There you are. Um, all right, I'm going to mute all because I want to make sure we're quiet. So anyway, nobody cared. I don't know. In the warm up that people that was not recorded, I admitted that I'm a little what do they call dysregulated? That's what I am. I'm dysregulated today. Something. Anyway, happy anniversary, happy birthday, and let's meditate. I'm just settling into a nice, comfortable posture. And you can close your eyes or just lower your gaze. If you can, really let your body be still. We're sitting still. There's a kind of increased awareness, I think, of sensations and feelings in the body, our ordinary way of kind of shifting and moving in subtle ways. Without that, kind of highlights the sensations of the living body. So turn your attention to those sensations now, just feeling the whole body, feeling the particulars, the places where there's distinct sensations, and also not overlooking the places where there are very few sensations. And then letting awareness of the breath come forward. Just feeling the body breathing. And then to strengthen our focus, can pick out one area of sensation around the breath, either at the nostrils or the belly, either feeling the touch of air moving the nostrils in and out, or following the movement, the rhythmic rising and falling of the belly, the diaphragm. Our minds tend to be busy. The momentum of thinking often carries on, carries us away from the breath. The training in mindfulness of the breath is to return when we notice the wandering mind. The tendency is to judge the wandering mind, to think we're doing it wrong, or to become frustrated that we can't stay with the breath. And those are just additional thoughts, biases. The practice doesn't suggest judging ourselves, just says to keep coming back, just as we do with the program. If you want to strengthen the focus on the breath, try looking more closely, feeling the particulars of an in-breath and an out-breath, the details of sensation. If we can become interested in the breath, we'll be less likely to wander off. But it's also useful to just make note of the thoughts that do take you away. What are the themes in your mind this morning? Sometimes those themes will be reflections of underlying emotions. Other times it's simply boredom. The breath is not exciting. The mind looks for entertainment. Observing the thoughts, the content of thoughts is not a license to do self-analysis or try to figure things out. Merely a way of observing. You can think of it as data points, putting a check by that thought and then returning to the breath. Another thought, another check, and returning again. In time, we make intuitive insights and understandings out of those data points without analyzing, without efforting. Really, just the mindfulness of thoughts itself will reveal patterns. And meanwhile, just enjoying the breath, enjoying stillness and quiet. All right. Nice to see everyone. For those in the Bay Area, I will be at the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery in person tonight. Uh, we've been trying to build up that group, which started probably maybe a decade ago, and then of course shut down for the pandemic. And never been a big group, which is very pleasant actually. So if you're in the Bay Area, hope you will stop by Berkeley Buddhist Monastery, 2304 McKinley in Berkeley, 7:30. Okay. And I see we've got Bob Weir here with us today, Disembodied. That's actually Fordham M, who likes to go by various aliases, most notably Reverend Freakchild. But anyway, I'm calling you out there, Fordham, so deal with it. Yes, nice to see you. Um, yes, death has been on my mind. um, and whose mind hasn't it been on, after all? Not to yeah, spoil the mood, but actually last month at the monastery, I picked up a little book that had been published by the Abhayagiri Monastery, and one of the first books I've seen them publish that wasn't by one of the monastics, but was by Rana Kabatsnik, who is a local Berkeley Buddhist practitioner, and actually I think she's done a lot of work around eating disorders. But she was in Thailand uh, in 2004, and she's a therapist, and she was there when the tsunami hit southern Thailand, and she went to help people in that area, and so she wrote this little book. It's 85 pages or so. It's called Who by Water, which I think it was a quote of something. Um, and so I don't know if it's available. A lot of times their books are available by ebook as ebook, uh, and and it's horrifying, and beautiful as she walks among the just lines of rotting corpses, and and reflects on death, from the sort of a Buddhist perspective as well as a psychologist perspective. And I was reading that the last couple nights, and it just seems, uh, you know, always relevant death. Part of my daily practice at the end of my sittings is to recite the five daily recollections of the Buddha, which start by saying I'm in the nature to age, to sicken, and to die. And I remember when I first started to practice, really a long time ago, I somehow I got it. Maybe I heard it. Obviously, I did. Uh, that death was important to Buddhists. That reflecting on death, and when you if you ever sit with Tibetans, the first thing they talk about is the preciousness of human life and the rarity of human life and their cosmology of, rebirth, and that we get reborn in these different realms, and that the human realm is the ideal realm for enlightenment, that there's a perfect combination of suffering and awareness. Supposedly the heaven realms that are more pleasant than the human realm aren't great for enlightenment because it's so pleasant, and you live so long that there's very little opportunity for insight. You don't really see impermanence, and you're not really struggling. There isn't a lot of physical discomfort. I don't think, I'm not sure they have bodies in the heaven realms, but anyway, and then the hell realms are just so bad that you know you can't get enough clarity to you know cultivate any wholesome uh, karma, and the same with the animal realms. There isn't enough awareness, and et cetera, et cetera. So um, that's one message we hear, and then attachment to life, right? And how the suffering that comes with attachment, the suffering that comes with clinging. And there's many suttas that in which people die and they come to the Buddha distraught, and he reminds them that everything is impermanent, and that they should practice to let go of attachment, to let go of the causes of suffering. And one of the in the Four Noble Truths, when it describes the causes of suffering, one of them says the craving for existence, and it's not something people generally want to hear about. I remember giving a talk on that topic actually at the monastery many years ago. I was filling in for James Barrows and gave a talk on death, and someone came up to me afterward and said, you really shouldn't talk about death. There could be people here that are dying. And it struck me as a rather odd thing to say, since we are all dying slowly. Um, and what I was going to say early in my practice, I remember saying to a Zen practitioner, well, I think you know, Buddhism is all about death, or it's about uh, understanding our impermanence as living beings. And they were like bothered by me bringing up death. And then on my first long retreat, early on that retreat, I was in a small group meeting with a teacher named Sunanda Anik Mehu, who was a sort of unique and eccentric teacher who would ask kind of challenging questions. And she asked this small group of people, "What is the process of pain?" Sort of odd question. And I immediately said, uh, "It's fear of death." And she's like, "Yes, that's yes. That what happens with pain, why we, the reason pain is there, right, is to protect us from danger, right? That's why we have physical pain. And there's those rare conditions where people don't have physical pain, and they generally die very early in their lives. They don't live very long. And so pain is this thing to protect us from danger, but it also implies that we are that pain, what it triggers, it's you know background underlying fear is that this pain is going to cause me death, and so I need to avoid it. I need to get away from it because it could cause death. I don't know if that made sense, but you know, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But it was the thing is, when you're on a meditation retreat, people experience a fair amount of pain, especially if they're sitting in like a cross-legged posture, or their back starts to hurt, or their knees start to hurt, and then they go to the teacher and they say, I'm having all this pain. How do I get rid of it? Basically, is please fix me. And the teacher's like, well, that's not what we're doing here. Like, can you bring mindfulness to the experience, and what's it feel like? So Nanda was taking that question a little bit further, saying, not only what does it feel like, but what's the underlying impulse behind getting away from fear? It's getting away from death. It's it's the first, road sign, death up ahead, right? Yes. So, I guess that, it seems like an appropriate enough topic because of the loss of Renee Good, and that horror in our country. And I got an email from someone last night telling me about a an addict who died recently, and the circumstances were really, tragic, and so, we try to not think about it. We try to get away from it, but there it is, and the question for a Buddhist, I would say, is how am I going to face that, not how am I going to avoid it. Um, but it's also interesting that the Buddha, um, when he sets out on his spiritual journey, he says he's trying to conquer death, and and indeed, nibbana or nirvana is sometimes called the deathless realm. So that, you know, brings forth another question. What does that mean? The Buddha isn't talking about uh, not having physical death. He claims that he conquered death when he became enlightened, but then at 30, age of 35, but then at 80, he dies. His body dies. And so um, the deathless realm refers to not creating a future or a past or indeed a self that's in the future or the past or in the present. That so I guess if there's I think there's a simpler way to talk about it. Um, that our ordinary way of being is thinking about our life as like, oh, the past and all these things happened to me, and then things are happening to me right now, and then I'm moving towards something in the future. And so there's this sense of continuity of a movement through time, and that all of that is just a creation of the mind. None of that is real in the sense that all past experiences can aren't do not exist anymore. The future does not exist. The present moment exists, but because it's not a thing, it's not a static thing. There's no arriving. There's just being. And I don't know if that quite answers the question I'm asking, but it's that sense of not creating the world, not creating the past and the future, and creating a self, just being and existing, and not making something out of that. So maybe to say that if there is no projection out into the future, and there is no sense that I'm carrying along the past with me, then there doesn't have to be fear of of losing something. There's nothing to lose, right? It's just there's no thing there to lose. There's no self there to lose. There's breathing and there's not breathing. There's energy and there's just changing forms. Anyway, I didn't mean to get so whatever deep this morning. Um, so I just, yeah, I mean, what comes to mind for me right now is just being grateful to be with people that are on a path. So I guess what I would shift, if I'm going to shift gears, it's a little bit, um, reflecting on this idea of recovery as a spiritual path. when I think about, I mentioned, I guess, before the recording that I'm, been invited to be part of some mindfulness um, seminar for like for clinicians, and how awkward that feels to me because I don't think of addiction and recovery as like a clinical thing, like, go to the doctor and get cured of your addiction. I think of it as a spiritual thing, and that doesn't really fit into clinical context, right? One of the reasons there's this like movement towards, I don't know how much, it's certainly been around a long time, but movement of applying mindfulness to treatment and to recovery is that they don't want to say Buddhism because they don't want to sound religious, and because they're trying to not be like AA is religious, and we don't want to like replicate that by making it Buddhism. It's just more religion. And I'm like, okay, but you know, I, it the there's a lot of wisdom in the AA Big Book, and one of the very wise things in it is that this is a malady, a spiritual, physical, emotional, mental malady, and it needs care on all those levels. And Buddhism offers that on all those levels. And so, I don't. It's just on that. Just probably the word spiritual is right already, kind of like this line. That people want to remain secular, and it doesn't work for me, and I don't I don't feel like I have to make an argument about that or dispute if secular mindfulness works for you as a recovery program. That's great. Um, I need a sense of something more. Um, wow, more what? What is Buddhism to me? It's just, I guess for me, it's about life, but on every level of life, from the inner, from the emotional world to the what I would call, I mean, the basic idea of spirituality to me is this feeling of connection. But it's also, I mean, I argue in my book, Burning Desire, now titled Higher Power, that the distinction is between spiritual and material, and that's certainly one of them. But the idea in our society, and general idea in the world, is that life is solved through material means. That is, by being financially secure and having people, you know, a family and a job and friends, and sort of having things that and having that, getting all that together, right? Having a together life. And whereas the spiritual says none of that will actually solve the spiritual malaise, as we call it, and that we need, um, that we need to, that the work all begins internally, and that that's where freedom comes. And there's a great sutta where the Buddha makes this argument that, and that about how, uh, am I thinking of a sutta? It might be actually there's an essay. A better reference for this is an essay by Bhikkhu Bodhi on freedom. And he starts by going through all the ways that people think of freedom as an external thing, and that the ultimate point you get to is that you have to be in control, right? And that he gets to this, like, the world, the monarch who rules the world. So this may sound familiar given our current political state, right? That's the end point of trying to attain freedom that is in this sense of being able to do whatever you want to do, right? Is that you're the king or queen. Uh, and he points out that it doesn't matter because no matter how much control you have, if you still have greed, hatred, and delusion inside yourself, you are experiencing dukkha. So the end of dukkha comes when there is no more grasping, and that is not about controlling the world. It's really about letting go. And so this is the argument that it's the spiritual way to freedom and happiness is internal. It's through seeing how suffering arises through craving, through hatred, through delusion, and then letting go of craving, hatred, and delusion. Being aware, being bright, being, eyes wide open, you know, conscious, feeling fully, allowing without pushing away, without grasping. That's what we, I will say, speak for us, are trying to do here. And that's what the beauty of working with addiction is that addiction is this like encapsulation of those three poisons. It's a great distillation of greed, hatred, and delusion down to its, most dense and qualities. It's it's just a pure expression of greed, hatred, and delusion. And that when we engage that, if we develop some insight, some understanding about what's going on, we see this essence that the Buddha is talking about. And then we stop looking outward to fix and control our world, and we start looking inward over and over, day by day, moment by moment, breath by breath. Oh, and we realize dukkha, suffering, all my complaints about the world start right here. And if I want them to change, I have to stay here. I can't be out there thinking I'm going to solve it all. And this is why we practice mindfulness. We try to cultivate mindfulness, develop, strengthen our mindfulness, and then we try to bring it with us in our lives so that each moment we can let go, the opposite of grabbing onto. And we don't have to become king or queen of the world to find freedom, to find happiness. We just have to become if we're talking about a ruler, the ruler of our own heart. Take that as a metaphor, if you will. This is, and we're not it's not that we're controlling it. It's the opposite of control, letting go, right? And this is then gets into the middle way of efforting and letting go. That that we have to, there needs to be this cultivation and maintenance of a mindfulness and insight and wise action and wise speech, all of that. And in that whole process, we need to be watching the heart and seeing where the clinging happens, where the pushing away happens, and letting go in those moments. This is our work. This is the challenge that makes it a continual job, one that doesn't stop after 30 days sober or 10 years or 40 years, that it's ongoing. And it's also what makes it so intriguing and so rich and meaningful because it doesn't stop. You know, we we aren't what I mean, one of the great things about impermanence is that that we ourselves, our own experience of life keeps changing. And you think, oh, I know who I am, or I know and all of a sudden some mental state or some feeling arises that you're like, what's this? What's going on with me right now? It's like, oh, wait, oh, let's find out. What's it feel like? What's how is it expressing itself? Oh, okay. Let me breathe with that. Let me allow that. Let me bring compassion to that. Let me bring wisdom to that. It's not boring to be a human being, I will say that. There are many opportunities for adventure, inner adventure. So glad I got off the topic of death. But I'm actually talking about death, by the way. Guess what I'm talking about the death of, delusion, the death of delusion uh, into controlling the world and fixing our lives and fixing ourselves through the external world. But anyway, thank you for your kind attention and, uh, you know, appreciate people being here and showing up, even though I might not always be the most sane person to listen to on a Tuesday morning. Hello, Kathy. Oh, well,
Hello.
hello.
Um, Thank you. That was wonderful, as usual. Thank you for showing up all the time for us, Kevin. You've been a big help. Um, I wanted to wish you a great trip to New York because we've talked about traveling, and that's an easy flight and a good trip. So
Right.
that'll be fun. And we want a full report when you come back because that's very exciting about where your wife is going and
Oh, yeah.
Leo and
Yeah,
just the whole
we'll see.
thing. So, yeah, we want a full report on that. I don't know if you watched the Golden Globes, but he gave a great speech accepting the award for best screenplay, and it was funny about being a writer. Um, and also your discombobulated state. I wanted to tell you, get into a New York state of mind and have a great trip. And just thank you.
Thanks.
And
Thank you.
Friday night was great at Spirit Rock. I'm really grateful you're doing
Oh,
this annual thing. I'm really looking forward to that. So
thank you. Yeah, yeah.
take care.
For those who don't know, thank you, Kathy, for being there. In my monthly class at Spirit Rock, I'm again. I don't. What did I say I was doing? I'm starting with the Four Noble Truths, and I'm going to go through suttas and basically the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, at no particular pace. Just gonna kind of work with starting with the setting in motion the wheel of Dharma Sutta and then move wherever I need to move. So last year I went through the 12 steps, and this year I'm gonna work with suttas. So anybody who's interested in that, come on the second Friday of each month. And John E., please.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. Um, that was a lot, Kevin, and I
Yeah,
appreciate your clarity on it really a lot. I came to the same place over the course of the past week, but from a different plane. I heard a Dhamma talk by, and I don't know, I have the name exactly right, but Thanissaro Bhikkhu.
yeah, Thanissaro. Yeah, sure.
Thanissaro, okay. And it was about how love is not real.
Hmm.
Metta is real,
Uh-huh.
but love is not because
Uh-huh.
love is about investing um, expectations on an other. Just there was more to it, but
Right, right.
it's not healthy from a perspective of non-attachment and all
Yeah.
that. And I kind of resented it, and I said, you know what?
Right.
I believe in love, dude. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And it's now I have a reason, this non-self. Not now. Love is not real. I think I got enough to get out of here. So I'm a part of Flo's Sangha here in Georgia.
Oh, beautiful. All
We
right.
just started a book study on higher power, aka burning desire, just so you know.
Oh, lovely.
So what happened was in meditation, I had the subject of death came up, right?
Mm,
And imagistically, it was me with my father as he was dying. It was
mm,
me at my mother's bedside when she woke up, having already been intubated, and the panic in her eyes,
mm,
looking to me to help. And I couldn't. and some other places in my life where love wasn't the magic elixir of victory.
Yeah.
So I got to contemplate love from the perspective of death and non-self. And I'm thinking maybe there's something to this, you
Mm.
know? So I'm not ready to leave and become a monk yet. Well, not that kind of monk anyway, but yeah, there's something there that's more real than John.
Yeah.
And it's probably still John, but it's not John. It's the negation of everything. So, the other thing I'm reading Goldstein, and he's talking about the elements, the fire, the air, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is true, right? I mean, so I just want to say thank you because it's where it seems to me that a lot of things that come up when I'm here on a Tuesday are things that I'm being touched by or that I'm
Mm.
touching. Even the mention of a screenplay. I'm beginning a screenwriting class tonight.
Mm.
And one of the things I'm thinking of trying to give body to is are these notions about these failed loves. They're not failed loves, but they're that human love that comes with such elemental non-being that they're ephemeral, right? They're not the child looking in the mother's eyes while they're feeding, and yet they are,
Hmm.
and yet they're not. What a trip, you know. So thank you for always coming and making a place for us to be. Yeah.
Thanks, John. That's great. Yeah, Tanasaru, he's a challenging teacher for sure. Um, oh, that's nice. There's somebody is interested in being that group with you. Check that out on the chat. Um, yeah, and you know, it's a hard way of putting it. Like love, like, of course, love exists. It's just a matter of how we define love, and obviously, I mean, I hope it's obvious. What he's talking about is not love, but attachment, and that's where the Buddha says sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair are caused by those who are dear. You know, they arise through attachment, and that's pretty evident that we grieve when people die. We grieve when we lose people. And I don't take that, and I talked about this in my book, Living Kindness. I don't take that to mean we shouldn't have attachments, because to me, that's asking us to be non-human. Attachment and what we call love, the kind of ordinary human relationships that we call love, are a natural and healthy part of life. The point to me is to understand that when loss happens, it's also a natural part of life, and that the sadness that comes is natural. That we don't, in the suttas, what happens is that people lose their minds. People are despairing in grief because they don't understand. And the Buddha is saying, if you understand, you won't lose your mind. He's not saying you won't be sad. There won't be grief. Grief is a normal, healthy human experience. We can sometimes get this idea that, oh, if you're a Buddhist, you should just like not feel anything and let everything go. I just don't think that's what he's saying. And really, when I delve into the suttas, and again, I talk about this in Living Kindness, there's a point at which his closest friends die, and the Buddha says, it feels as if the Sangha is empty. Well, he's sad. He's sad. Buddhists again like to idealize the Buddha and say, "Oh, well, he didn't feel." Yes, no, it's okay. He can be sad. You can have a sad Buddha without thinking he's not enlightened. Enlightenment doesn't mean you don't have any feelings. That'd be stupid. Who wants that? That's not human. So we have to be careful how we take this, take the teachings and imagine something that's not only not human, but just not real and not even desirable, you know. Of course, we want to have love, you know. There's a lot of love in every monastery, and it's just not clinging. It's understanding loss and not being overwhelmed by it. Which, you know, even being overwhelmed by it, that's okay too. Like, of course, you get overwhelmed for a while, you know. God, it just, you know, death can be just horrifying, you know, and brutal and tragic, and you know, we feel that. And we try to remember everything is impermanent. You know, I am impermanent, you are impermanent, everything. All that is mine, dear and delightful, will change and will vanish. Steve, I think we can let you be our final word today.
Thank you, Kevin. Well, that's a really wonderful talk. Is this whole concept of death for me, checking in on my own mortality is there's so many teachings, you know, that you talk about, and this is where I come to get that information because I don't spend a lot of time in the suttas, but I've been spending a lot of time back in the big book,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm starting to relate with my prayers and taking all that I've learned through my meditation. And what's really come up for me, which came out today in your talk, was I don't fear death, but what I do fear is I fear the suffering if I don't take care of my addictions
Yeah.
and the things that I'm doing to myself and the emotional pain I'm feeling around what's going on, number one, in our country and what's going on in the world. So I don't want to end up suffering like I see so many people doing. A lot of it is because of my history with just abusing myself with drugs and food and alcohol and all that stuff. So I don't fear death, but it's really it has motivated me to really get healthy in my recovery so that I'll be here and I can enjoy it in this realm. And then when it's time to move on to the next realm, it will be a comfortable passing. It'll just happen. Very beneficial to have those words. Thank you.
All right. May it be so. Yeah, I think that's a common feeling that it's not the not being that we fear. It's the actual physical experience of deterioration and pain that's frightening, and you know, obviously also the sense of, you know, the potential losing of our ordinary mind is also a big fear. And you know, talk about powerless. Whew. So let's be like the Tibetans and make the most of what we have here. And that doesn't mean anything special. Doesn't mean doing anything in particular. Just be alive and bring care and kindness to each moment as best you can. And when I didn't mean be alive. I meant be awake. uh, yeah, with care and kindness. So um, yeah, I will be presumably in New York next Tuesday, God willing. When I say, for those who might wonder, when I say God willing, I'm not actually talking about you know, the God of the book. I'm talking about the law of karma. I mean, if the causes and conditions uh, allow me to be alive and functioning next Tuesday, and I just shorthand me is God, because it's a good phrase, God willing. But what I mean is karma willing. In case you're like disturbed by it. Uh, Question about is there a recording? Oh, Kevin Griffin's. Yes, my classes at Spirit Rock are recorded there on Dharma Seed. Let me just put that. They actually have an app and a website, dharmaseed.org. And there's thousands and thousands of Dharma talks on there, but you can search by the teacher. And so if you find me, then you go to my most recent talk and you'll get, presumably, I haven't looked, but they do. I know they do post them. I don't know if they post them immediately, but probably. So, and I think it's going to be posted as something like the Four Noble Truths or something like that. Yeah. So that's one place you can find me. And then these talks, such as they are, these classes are on YouTube and on a podcast that you can find, in the usual podcast places. And I'm not too far behind. I don't know how many classes, but I'm usually, because I have to post them and it takes me a few weeks at least to get them all up. But I'll try to do that this week if I have a minute. All right, my dears. Nice to see all of you, friends and new friends and old friends and to be friends. And
Vaya con Dios in New York.
Gratias.
Have a safe flight, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you. See you all soon.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
Okay.
Thank you.